Comic Book Savant, episode 313.
I know this. This I know. All that I have, all that is me, resides inside my poetry. And every time I write a rhyme, it might be the line that sets mine free. And also, I know that I don't.
Welcome to the Comic Book Savant podcast. I'm your host, James Harris. This week's episode is going to be all about Marvel's Doctor Strange. It just was released last week. So fair warning to anyone that haven't had a chance to see the movie. This is going to be a spoiler-filled review. So if you haven't seen Doctor Strange yet, hit pause, back away, see the movie, then come back because it will be spoilers throughout the review. With that out of the way, as always, I'd like to give a shout out to my friends over at the Comics Podcast Network. You can find them over at comicspodcast.com. It's a great place if you like comic book related podcasts and you've been a listener for any time to this podcast and you want to find more great comic book related podcasts. Is the place to go. It's just basically a big portal or melting pot. When you go to that page, there are literally hundreds of different comic book related podcasts that you can find there. You can find them based on publisher, that this solely focuses on one publisher, one character. The team is sorted out so many different ways. There's so many different, podcasts out there available. So you can pretty much find anything that would, fit one of your, fit that whatever itch for you for whatever you're looking for. So if you have a moment, check out comicspodcast.com for the Comics Podcast Network. And again, if you're in the market for finding more comic book related shows, that is definitely the one-stop shop place to go. And as always, I'd like to give a shout out for this in every episode to our sponsor, which is InStockTrades.com. The best place to go find collected editions anywhere on the internet. Is really one of the first places I go. Between that and Amazon and Comixology are the three top places that I go to look for collected editions. You can get discounts up to 35, 42, up to 50% off with their deals of the week. They really have some great deals of the week. Bouncing back off of last week's episode, which I really hope you guys enjoyed. I put a lot of research, finding some cool things to put in there, and the holiday comic shoppers guide. I hadn't done one in a couple. I missed out doing it last year, and I really wanted to do one. I think they're always kind of a cool episode, like I said, to kind of help you as a comics lover and fan to kind of open up and find things outside of maybe comics directly, but are still tied into the medium that you can, put in your man cave or your little gaming corner and have, or your reading nook that you can have that, this put you in that mood. It's just cool to have a space available for it. But I'm looking at some of the deals of the week this week, and we were talking about absolute editions, and I was, breaking it down and explaining to, for people that don't know what like absolute editions are. And one of the deals of the week, they have Absolute Batman Year One Absolute Edition, 50% off, only $62.50. And that is a awesome deal. Like absolute editions, like I said, they can be, you start looking at $100 to $125, $50 in some cases. So again, this one is roughly like $120 some retail. You're getting it for 50% off for $62.50. Really great deal. Like I said, it's unparalleled quality when you start talking about absolute editions. It is the pinnacle, I think, for DC of the collected edition that they put out. So it's definitely, you want to check that deal out. They also have Dark Knight Returns Collected Edition. I want to say this is, let me double check the verbiage here. It's a box set, so I'm assuming they're hardcover. $24.99. That's cool because you get it in a box set sleeve, so it goes nicely on the shelf. This series, DC Superhero Girls trade paperback, is volume 2, 50% off, only $4.99. So if you have a little girl, that's really popular. It's kind of funny because my wife loves cartoons and she follows this series. I might pick this up for her. Then also in the deals of the week, they have Black Panther Marvel Masterworks hardcover volume 2, and they have it in the variant cover. You can get this 50% off, $37.50. Really good deal. They have Miss Marvel Omnibus hardcover volume 1. This is 50% off, $37.50. Again, I talked about omnibuses and how they range in price, and they're kind of the pinnacle for, on the Marvel side, of these premium collected editions. So you definitely might want to check that out. I've heard a lot of good things about this series. I think I may have picked up the very first issue, and that's it. I don't think I've read it yet. So I definitely need to jump into this at some point. Then they have the Teen Titans, the Silver Age omnibus hardcover, $49.99, 50% off, really good deal. They also have War of Kings omnibus hardcover, 50% off, $62.50, and they have the Wonder Woman 75-year anniversary box set for $24.99. So it's really, this plays right into our last episode when I was talking about these premium editions that you would love to have on your shelf. They're displaying them in spades on InStockTrades.com, so you definitely want to check them out. If you're not familiar, if you're a U.S. customer and you have an order $50 or more, you get free shipping within the U.S. If you're an international customer, you can still get the great savings, and they have some of the lowest and most competitive international shipping rates around. So this right now is a great time before it gets heavy into the holiday shopping and shipping season to jump on some of these deals right now. So it's kind of funny that they followed their deals kind of followed off a really good follow-up to what we talked about last week in the holiday shopping guide. So just want to put that bug in your ear, so check them out. If you do check them out, let them know, as always, you heard about them here first on Comic Book Savant. Now into the meat of the episode, which is all about Doctor Strange. This is Marvel's 14th theatrical release. It's kind of crazy to see, to be around, because most of these movies were like dreams for me as a little kid. And I equate this, and I had a real transcendent type of experience, if I could use that word, going to see this movie. And I wanted to talk about it and really have me excited to sit down and be like, to do this review more so than any of the other ones, because, I do this as not as a living, trying to do it as a living, but, building up this thing that I've done for 10 years. And I've, in it, I'm a pundit of comic books and comic book reviews and the comic book medium, but then I'm a movie pundit too, because I love doing the movie reviews. And, I even previously had a podcast where I did movie reviews as well. So, online doing reviews via podcast form, at least, I've literally reviewed, hundreds of movies, at this point. So something that, I love movies. It's my, one of my second heaviest passions next to comics. And seeing this movie kind of reinvigorated me. Not that I get tired of seeing movies, because I love watching movies, but I was able to have my eyes open on a whole new perspective of movies. And I'm going to get into that further when I talk about the deep set review of Doctor Strange. But it's awesome where, again, when Iron Man came out those years ago, that was a dream of mine. I never thought that would actually be able to make it to the big screen, and it did. And I just had this childlike amazement in watching that movie for the first time that, I never quite got. You can never get that feeling back for the first time. But I was able to experience a similar type of excitement and enjoyment watching Doctor Strange. Now, again, Doctor Strange is directed by Scott Derrickson. It's written by John, I hope I pronounced his name correctly, Spates, Scott Derrickson himself, and C. Robert Cargill. The breakdown is as follows. A former neurosurgeon embarks on a journey of healing only to be drawn into a world of the mystic arts. And the cast is as follows. We have Benedict Cumberbatch as Dr. Stephen Strange. We have Chiwetel Ejiofor as Mordo. We have Rachel McAdams as Christine Palmer. Benedict Wong as Wong. We have Mads Mikkelsen as Caecilius. And we have Tilda Swinton as the Ancient One. Michael Stuhlbarg as Dr. Nicodemus West. And Benjamin Bratt as Jonathan Pangborn. This movie was something really, really, really different, and it's funny at this point that some people will tend to doubt Marvel and be like, Doctor Strange is a risk. We said it about, Ant-Man. It's a risk. It came out and it was a hit. We said it about Guardians before that. Like, this is a huge risk, the biggest risk Marvel's ever taken. It is a phenomenon. Guardians of the Galaxy is a phenomenon. And I didn't realize it. I enjoyed the movie. I liked the movie, owned the movie. My wife loves it. And, and this is a thing, too, where it transcends just us being comic fans now, because it's newer generations. It was something that struck me going into the viewing of Doctor Strange that me and my wife went to this past weekend, was that it was a lot of kids. And I thought, from the marketing, it seemed a little darker. So I was like, it's still, in PG-13 or whatever. I didn't think much about it, but I was like, wow, it's a lot of young kids. And I was just like, wow, I wonder how this is going to go, because, some trippy imagery and the whole, everybody kept talking about the, Inception, special effects and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, well, Derrickson has, a history from doing some horror stuff. So I was like, it's probably going to have a good mix of kind of horror, dark elements and comedy. This is my thoughts going in. So I was kind of concerned, and, I guess my concern is, I'm a grandfather, so I think about now when I view these movies as a reviewer, and to tell you guys, and you'll notice I'll say if you have a child of X amount age, you might not, might be a little dark for them, so just be mindful, or maybe view it yourself first, and so you can have a better gauge before you take a child this age in. And, I guess that's me just being older and being mindful of being a grandparent of these kind of things. So I was kind of, my eyebrows were kind of raised, and I was saying to my wife, it was it's a lot of young kids. And she was like, yeah, it really is. So I was concerned. But again, before the movie even started, they had you had your trailer. So they showed the teaser trailer for Guardians 2 that, was released online 2-3 weeks ago now. And just how everyone, comic fans, because there's always that mixture of comic fans, non-comic fans, and kids. And just when, Rocket came on the screen, Drax, and of course Groot, everybody in the theater screamed for little baby Groot in the cool leather jacket. I was kind of blown away, because it's kind of, as comic fans, we always have the inside cool thing, but so many now it has transcended and become such a shared experience that people are really, you could find their reactions. I'm like, wow, what Marvel and Disney and even what DC is doing is we're converting the world into comics fans in one way or another, if it's via the film and the cartoon or even the comics. I talked about this years ago on this show, how this shift was happening, but to really see it and it hit me full-fledged like this. This was one of the most obscure comics, and I was watching Collider Video. It's a YouTube channel. They do tons of movies reviews and have different shows, and they were having a conversation about this, where they someone wrote in a question about the whole comics industry and how it's having an effect on it all. And one of the hosts made a reference of, he has a friend that works in a comic shop, and he remembered before Guardians of the Galaxy came out that they could not give Guardians of the Galaxy comics away. After that movie came out till now, they cannot keep Guardians of the Galaxy comics in stock or trades or anything like that. And it's that was one of the most obscure properties ever. And I just see the kids' enthusiasm about that. And then they showed it was the Guardians trailer, and then what was the other? It was another. I can't remember what the other trailer was, but it was just crazy. Just the enthusiasm. Maybe was it Rogue One or something? And the kids were just super into it. And I'm like, they're just batting 1,000 right now. But getting back to the movie, again, I was worried about dark themes and all that going into it. I'm not a huge, and this is another thing for me that was exciting going into Doctor Strange. I know little about the character. I never was like a spiritual, mystical arts, type of, I don't like scary stuff, and it kind of always bordered that line. You guys know that. This is still amazing why I'm such a huge fan of The Walking Dead, because I don't like really, Dracula and all that kind of stuff. But, I was kind of worried about it going in, and this is a character I know, one of the characters as far as a major movie release that I know little about. I never read any ongoing Doctor Strange series. I know like some of this was based on The Oath, which I had picked up The Oath leading into the movie, but I just didn't have time to read it before we went to go see the movie, because I saw interviews with Derrickson, and they said they borrowed some heavily from that series. So I picked it up on Comixology. They had a huge sale on, and I think they still have it going on if you want to check it out, on Doctor Strange related, trades and material. So I said, okay, I'll pick that one up at least and read it. And look into it, because I do want to learn more about Doctor Strange. But I thought it was a very solid, origin story movie that did a really good job. And again, it was amazing seeing the audience. Like I said, this audience was like, I want to say, this movie, it was sold out. So let me say this. The viewing that I went to was sold out. And it was about 50-50 from kids to adults, which was just really shocking for like a Marvel movie, because normally you'll see some kids, but it was literally like families bringing like all their kids, 4 and 5, kids with them, and like the whole it was like a whole family experience. And the kids were like, as the movie went on and through the different scenes and stuff, they were really into Stephen Strange. They really were. They were really into this, the Ancient One, the Cloak of Levitation, even though it felt like it was ripped right out of Aladdin with the magic carpet, the kids really went for that. So that was a really smart move. I didn't know how I felt about it when they start teasing that the Cloak of Levitation had like a personality in the trailers, but seeing how it played out in the movie, I didn't necessarily care for it. But seeing how it drew younger viewers into that character even more, and it just looks like a genius move to me. I think the performances from top to bottom, and this is a strange thing about this movie, because, some people that are, diehard Doctor Strange fans love this movie to pieces. I really enjoyed the movie. The movie was thoroughly entertaining. So when it came down to it at the end, me and my wife were talking like, okay, now we've had like 14 Marvel movie releases. Where would this stack up? I don't think it's up there with Civil War or Winter Soldier. At this point. So where does it fall? And I kind of felt like in the immediate thing, we both kind of said it together. It kind of falls somewhere around Ant-Man. So it's kind of like a middle of the pack as far as a Marvel movie. And reason being with that is, again, we get another origin story, and it's kind of paint by numbers. We've seen this kind of structure. It's done in a different way. It's done very creatively, I'll have to say. I think the cast and even the villain, of course, and we've talked about in many of these reviews and online and everywhere else on social media about Marvel's handling of villains. This is what I have to say about Mads Mikkelsen's Caecilius. I really like the character. One of the biggest flaws I had in the movie is the length of the movie. For a Marvel movie, he clocked in like just shy under 2 hours, which seems kind of short for a Marvel movie, especially an origin story. And I felt like definitely it could have been about 10 to 15 minutes longer, to add some backstory to not just Caecilius, but I would have liked to see a little bit more Mordo's background, and even some more about the Ancient One, like those between Strange, Mordo, Caecilius, and the Ancient One. Just 15 minutes where you could have dispersed equally between all those characters just to get a little bit more of their backstory, because they all rung true as very interesting characters that you would want to know more about. So if they just could have had more running time where throughout the movie you could have a little bit more flashbacks or explanation into their past, that I would have really enjoyed that, because this was the first Marvel movie I've seen, I think, ever where it felt short to me. When the movie ended, it felt a little short to me personally. I haven't heard anyone else have that complaint, but that's why we do these things. Everybody has a different opinion. But it was the first Marvel movie I can honestly say that wasn't, I had some complaints where they could have had a few more minutes in Ant-Man, to flesh out the villain. But here, I think they could have fleshed out everyone a little bit more, as far as the main protagonist and antagonist in the movie, with a little bit more length in the movie. One thing, it's a few things that bothered me as well. One major thing was the timeline of the movie. A lot of things were talked about that, the movie was standalone, and for that it definitely was. But I felt like how the director, in a lot of interviews leading to the release of the movie, that I had the feeling that Doctor Strange was going to begin before present day and then lead us into the current day to, kind of account for whatever amount of time it was going to take him to train, because that, you just can't become like the Sorcerer Supreme overnight, or become a sorcerer overnight. And they kind of dropped the ball on, to me, they really dropped the ball on that. It was a sequence in the beginning of the movie before Stephen Strange has his, bad car accident that damages his hands, where it's a scene he's prepping to go to a presentation where he's going to speak or what have you, speaking engagement that he's going to go speak at. And you're seeing all these awards in his apartment that he's looking at, and they all have 2016 on it. And I'm like, okay, I could have sworn the director in all these interviews said this movie was going to be before the current day. So that just bothered me, because then I'm like, okay, then it's current day, regardless of when, is current day. And then they have this one part in the movie where his assistant that finds him, his next, surgeries to perform his miracles on, says it references an Air Force captain damaging an armor suit. And I'm like, okay, that seems like that would have, this could have been around the time of Civil War, and that was Rhodey. Though the director has come out and said that's not Rhodey, but in a different, under certain circumstances or whatever, it could be. He just made a very cryptic comment to be like, under certain circumstances it could have been, and others it isn't, and in this case it isn't. So it just left it murky, like they put it there but didn't take advantage of it. So it makes his training sequence seems so short, because he tries to date it saying his accident is like in April of the year, and then when he shows up in New York later in the movie, it's like, I don't know, like July, August or whatever, later in that same year or whatever. So months have passed, but I'm like, months to learn everything that he learned. But we do know that the Infinity Gem that was focused, or the focus in this movie, was the Time Gem. So, and then they're sorcerers, and then they show different realms and stuff, and he could have been hidden in a realm that more time could have passed in that realm, to give that he was away longer than what he thought. But it just seemed uneven, because when he popped up later in the movie, talking to Rachel McAdams' character, she felt like he had been gone for and how she talked was like he was gone for like a really long time. And I just thought they could have not put anything where they were showing him looking at a stream of awards on his shelf that all said 2016, 2016, 2016, and that they could have been blurred. And then it was a scene where he finally comes back to New York, when he comes to the Sanctum Sanctorum, and he busts out the door to the street to realize it's in New York. That then it would have had present day or 2016. So then you could have felt like, maybe the movie started 2014. So he was gone for like 2 years, because that's kind of how it felt. He had 7 different surgeries. Then, they couldn't have just had that many surgeries on him back to back to back to back to back like that in such a short amount of time. So it just feels like that was a misstep for Marvel. They're normally a lot tighter about that. They left it where you could question in the past, where they normally seal those holes up. They're kind of showing a little misstep here to me. I don't know how many people it bothered. Any of you guys, let me know. But it's really felt like that was the first misstep with continuity in these movies that they've really had. So that was that glaring to me. Another thing that was kind of off to me, and I really like her as an actress, but I just think they gave her character so little to do. I didn't really care for the Christine Palmer character, and in her chemistry with Doctor Strange. It kind of felt more Thor with Thor and Jane Foster, and how it was written. They didn't give her much to do. Her character didn't seem as grounded and believable as I wanted it to be. She didn't question what she was seeing, and coming off of Luke Cage and with not the night nurse, or what is her, Claire's character being a nurse and being in an emergency room and seeing these fantastical things and how she questions everything. I felt like Christine Palmer's character questioned nothing and just, okay, so it's a floating cloak here, okay, whatever. And it seemed totally to unfaze her. So that bothered me. And the last thing that bothered me is Dormammu. Just the whole CGI design of Dormammu didn't work for me. It didn't take me out of the movie, and it was cool to see, the dark dimension. That was awesome, and all the other CGI elements were phenomenal. But those were kind of the things that bothered me about the movie. Again, I think Tilda Swinton stole the show as the Ancient One. I know there was a lot of issue about, they felt like the character was being whitewashed. But I think it still ultimately represented what the character is at its core. And was cool to see. Mordo, Chiwetel Ejiofor was just really, really good. I wish we could have kind of saw more, especially when it comes to his dark turn that we see at the end of the movie, at the end credit scene, which I have to talk about that too. Caecilius, like I said, all of these main characters were good to me. I thought they were excellently cast and really well represented in the movie. Caecilius, like I was saying earlier, was with Mads Mikkelsen's performance, even though he was underutilized like many other Marvel movie villains are. But one thing about Caecilius, I really felt that he was a threat. I never, like in certain other movies, I never felt like the villain was a definite threat. Caecilius, when he came on screen, was a bad dude. You know what I'm saying? He was BA. Trying to keep the profanity out of the podcast. But, he was one BA dude, and you felt like when he showed up, somebody could die. And people did die when he came around. So he was definitely a viable threat, which we haven't really seen in the Marvel movies. Like Ronan the Accuser, even though he's always was a cool character I liked in the comics, but kind of in Guardians, like he's kind of a joke. Like, let's be honest. The Dark Elf from the Dark World, he's kind of like a joke, where Thor's going to beat him down or Loki's going to beat him down. Like they never seemed like viable threats. He felt like when he was on the screen was like, whoa, something's about to happen, which I feel like, so it's a minor shift. We're still far away from getting these fully, formed awesome, villains like we're getting on the Netflix shows. But this is improvements because you have less time in a movie and you want to showcase these heroes to make you fall in love with the heroes. But I think it's a slight improvement going into a better direction on handling villains moving forward. What else do I want to say? One thing that bothered me too were the end credit scenes, which was kind of weird because people it was two. It was, one shortly after, and then one at the very end of the credits. And everybody left. A lot of people left. It was like less than 5 people in the theater that actually saw the actual end credit scene. The first one was one where you see Doctor Strange talking to Thor, and he's going to help him look for Odin. He has Loki, and so that's kind of cool. So it appears that not just Hulk, but Doctor Strange is going to be in Thor Ragnarok, which is awesome. So we don't have to go too much longer, about a year, because, as of this recording, Thor Ragnarok comes out like the 17th or something of November of next year. So we have just about a year, give or take, before that comes out. So we'll get to see Doctor Strange relatively soon. And then the second end credit scene was Mordo kind of, he felt betrayed by the Ancient One when it was revealed that the Ancient One had been to keep her immortality. She was, tapping into the dark dimension for power to do that, which she told to everyone else was totally forbidden. So he felt betrayed, and he, goes on a self-serve exile. And when he comes back, he goes to Benjamin Pratt's character, Jonathan Pangborn, and forcibly takes his magic and absorbs it into his own. And he makes this statement that the problem with the world is that there are too many sorcerers. So it seems like he's going to be going around killing / forcibly taking people's mystic powers, adding them to their own, so they can't mangle and misuse the powers in which they learned. So that sets up, potentially for a Doctor Strange sequel. As of this recording, this movie worldwide has made of the upwards of over 300 million. It had 85 million this weekend, opening weekend here. It already had been open the week prior in overseas. So it's raking in money hand over fist. So anything at this point forward, it's made its money back. It's already broke even. So anything going forward is just gravy. And I hope it does well enough to, that it warrants a sequel. Again, where when you line this movie up, it's hard because we have 14 movies now, and it kind of just falls, when I went back through my ranking, 14 is still, unfortunately, Thor: The Dark World, as far as the worst of the Marvel cinematic movies. Iron Man 2, 13, 12 is Iron Man 3, 11 is Avengers Age of Ultron, 10 is Thor, 9 is The Incredible Hulk, 8 is Ant-Man, 7 for me is Doctor Strange. It edges out Ant-Man by a hair. For me, 6 is Guardians of the Galaxy, 5 is Iron Man, 4 is Captain America, the First Avenger, 3 is The Avengers, 2 is Captain America Civil War, and number 1, as far as my ranking of the Marvel movies, is Captain America the Winter Soldier. Still my number 1 favorite Marvel movie. So Doctor Strange is, like I said, when I say this, it's right in the middle of the pack, because I think the movies kind of decline some when you get to Incredible Hulk, going to that later. Ant-Man and Doctor Strange are so closely tied together. I think you can swap those based on your mood, to me. But I just think the cast of characters, protagonists, antagonists in that movie are just a little bit more interesting than in Ant-Man. But again, it just depends if I feel like laughing or feel like, I can't even say that because Doctor Strange had a lot of laughs in it too. But it just depends on my mood. It would flip-flop. That's how close the two were. So, we're looking at upcoming comic book releases. Next year is just stacked. And I'm just trying to look at what's on the horizon. And this seems to be a really good hit, a really big hit. And I think, just seeing the crowd reaction, we have Rogue One next month, which is, also a Disney / Marvel / type of collaboration. So it's going to be interesting to see how that's received. Like, again, I was shocked from the reaction from that the younger kids gave to Doctor Strange. They really loved this movie, and it was really cool seeing it from their eyes and seeing their reaction. They really got behind Doctor Strange. So I feel like this franchise has legs just based on my viewing and seeing that it was half adults, half kids, and the kids loved the movie. They were so into it, on the edge of their seat and like reacting. I hadn't seen that kind of reaction in a movie, to be honest, in a while. So seeing that, I'm like, they can really make something out of this with Doctor Strange, and just seeing the reaction from the crowd for the Guardians Volume 2 trailer, like that's about to be a monster in a few months. When that hits in May, that's going to be so huge. Like the kids, the parents, like everyone, and just how everybody in the theater literally was like, oh, when they saw Groot in a little jacket and then popping off of Rocket's, shoulder. I'm like, and I even was so, like, I felt so hyped as soon as that music came on for that trailer. Like, I just got hype immediately. Like, I'm so ready for Guardians, which is, so crazy. But here's the upcoming slate of movies we have for 2017. We have Logan, that's going to come out March 3rd. Then we have Ghost in the Shell, March 31st. Then we have Guardians Volume 2, May 5th. Kingsman: The Golden Circle, June 16th. Then June 23rd, we have Wonder Woman. Then we have Wonder Woman was the other trailer everyone was going crazy over. That's what it was. It was Wonder Woman was this other trailer, and people are really hype about that from the reaction, which I'm so geeked for that as well. And it was my first time seeing that trailer, not on online at home, but seeing it on the big screen, and it's just like, that's going to be such a beautiful movie. Then we have Spider-Man: Homecoming, July 28th. Thor: Ragnarok, November 3rd. Well, I thought, so we are like a year away from Ragnarok. I thought it was 17th. Justice League is November 17th. I was getting dates mixed up in my head. So, we have a huge slate of comic book related movies coming down the pike, hot and heavy. So, again, I think this is a great time to be a comic fan, and it's really shifting. And maybe we're not so much the target as we used to be. It's like reaching those younger kids for years to come. But they're still, like I said, this wasn't the best movie, and I didn't even give my official ranking for the movie. For me, using my rating system, it's a date night rental. So on a 10-point scale, a date night rental is between an 8 and a 7. I would kind of say Doctor Strange falls at a 7.5 for me. And like I said, it's right there, right about what I gave Ant-Man. So I would say a 7.5 on a 10-point scale for my rating. Again, date night rental. Definitely worth going to see at the movie theater for real. Can't wait till this come out on home video to add it to the collection, Marvel collection. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about that, guys. Like I said, I hope you enjoyed last week's episode. It's getting a ton of downloads, so I hope it's very useful. As always, you can find me at comicbooksavant.com, which is the website. I also have a page or a place on Facebook, facebook.com/comicbooksavant. I post stuff there. You can follow me on Twitter. Like I said, I've been trying to get more involved in social media. I might have certain days because, my illness and everything that slows me down. So I'm not as active. I've been trying to post, like little recommendations for, Throwback Thursday for reading, or for the weekend, like a comic book movie you can check out, different little things. So definitely hit me up on social media. Like I said, I'm still learning my way, navigating it all. Like I told you guys when I posted last week's episode, I think I posted on, I don't know on the website, but for sure on the Facebook page and on Instagram, I posted pictures of the my old comic room, the Bat Cave, as I used to call it, and showed you like how I had all my stuff organized and had all my shelves of Absolute Editions, trades, and all that. So, and statues to kind of to show you how you can have things set up and show you how some of this stuff looks if you haven't seen it before. So I posted a few of those pictures on there as well. So like I said, I'm getting more active. So hit me up on those. Follow me. They're all at Comic Book Savant. Twitter is at Comic Book Savant. Instagram at Comic Book Savant, even Snapchat, even though I'm not good at Snapchat yet, but I don't really have any followers either. So follow me on Snapchat at Comic Book Savant. I will see you guys next week for another episode. Take care, and definitely check out some of these books as well. Like, if you haven't read a lot of Doctor Strange like me, I got the Oath on the stack to read. So definitely go out and pick some of this up and learn more about these characters, because they're awesome. And I will see you guys again next week for another episode. Take care.
And into lyrical wholeness. And I know this, and I know this. This I know, this I know.